him a lot, 'cause we got him on the spot. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Paula Schaffner with On the Spot, a Welcome Back Kotter podcast. And this time I have a special guest star.
I am Lisa Fernandes. I was formerly of the Night After Night podcast. I continue to take podcasting work, and we're going to have another podcast coming up in the future.
Yes.
But right now I'm happy to tell you my thoughts about Hotsy Totsy. They're my favorite all-time Welcome Back Kotter sporting guests.
Yeah, so before we talk about this episode specifically, what is your experience with Welcome Back Kotter? Like, was it something you watched a lot on Nick at Night, or what's your background with it?
Nick at Night and TV Land are what introduced me to it. My parents enjoyed it. That was one of my secondary favorites after Laverne and Shirley, but I would always stop to watch when it was on. I do have the complete series on DVD now, so
Great.
Yeah. It's one of my top 20 sitcoms.
Oh.
It's really enjoyable. I really enjoy it.
Wow. I don't know that, I talked about this on an earlier pod, I wouldn't necessarily put it in my top 20, but it's one of those shows that was my favorite show at the time. And then it was replaced by Three's Company in 1977. But for a couple years, which was the first half of the run, it was my favorite show. And this is a very interesting show. It was, this episode was the fourth to air, and it is called Whodunit.
Yes.
It was first broadcast on September 30th, 1975. There are some interesting episode summaries online. I would like to know how you would sum it up, but first I'll tell you what it says on IMDb. Rosalie fakes she's pregnant in order to make the Sweat Hogs confess she did not fool around with them.
That's pretty accurate. That's pretty good. I would want to emphasize, first of all, that we know right from the beginning she's not pregnant. She's not very sly.
No.
But Gabe falls for it because she's a decent enough actress in front of Gabe to fool Gabe.
Yeah.
So
the audience has let it in on it very early. Oh, I just want to mention Bob Lehendro, who had directed most of the early episodes, is directing this one again. It was written by husband and wife team, Jerry Rano and Jewel Jaffe Rano. She was born in 1944 in the USA. That's all I know about that. A lot of the people who wrote and directed for the show and some of the guest stars and some of the regular cast have a New York, New Jersey background, so I'm trying to note regional. She actually acted a bit in the 60s, including an appearance on Gidget. And she was a story editor for Welcome Back Kotter, but this was her first script. Jerry Rano was born in Racine, Wisconsin in 1939, and he also acted a bit in the 60s and 70s, including on Welcome Back Kotter. I don't remember which episode that is. And she didn't write much else for TV, but he wrote, starting with the Jonathan Winter Show in 1967, on through Head of the Class in the late 80s. So very different classroom with the smart kids.
yes.
And they married in 1963, but later divorced. And according to IMDb, he was still alive in 2023.
That's cool. I would actually love a Head of the Class podcast, even though you have to deal with some elephants in the room there. That was one of my...
Like Robin Givens.
But even forget that! Dan Schneider!
I don't know what did he turn to a life of crime? I don't know what happened to the people afterwards.
He became a huge muckety-muck on Nickelodeon, produced a lot of kids shows, and got accused of sexual assaulting the kids.
Oh, that's horrible. I didn't know that. I did not keep up with anybody on the show. I see the people on other programs.
Yeah.
Well, that's horrible. Yeah, but it's an interesting show. I haven't seen it since the time. I did like it, but I was a little bit older than them, so I didn't really follow it. I always like Howard Hessman.
I was younger. I fell into that, looking up to them kind of.
But Howard Hessman is always great, so.
Yes, always. And then, when he decided to leave the series, he was replaced by Billy Connolly, who's also...
That's right, okay, yeah. I vaguely remember that. I kind of stopped watching it by that point, but I was kind of aware of Billy. Okay, yeah.
Yes.
I don't know, that probably ran I think it ran longer than Kotter did, maybe 6 or 7 seasons?
Yes.
What did they do when the kids graduated?
Now I'm going to look it up. The kids do graduate at the end of the show.
Okay. And it was high school.
I'm going to look up,
See, I always figured with Welcome Back Kotter, they just kept being left back. That was how I explained it to myself.
Yeah. Which is the easiest way to do it, to be frank.
But with the smart kids, I don't know how that works out.
5 seasons.
Okay, I guess it felt longer.
Yeah.
So maybe they repeated a year.
Yeah, only one Charlie free season. That was the one Billy Connolly, and that's when they ended up dying.
Oh, okay.
So that kind of fit because they went from freshmen to graduating the kids, and they graduated the kids. That's the last thing you see, and there you go. And they got just enough for syndication, so there you go.
Yeah, with Welcome Back, Kotter, they seem to be 16-year-old, probably juniors. They haven't said yet, but that's my impression.
Yes.
The first few episodes, it seems like Kotter was 16 10 years ago. And I don't know if they're going to be consistent about that, but that seems to be what's going on. We do know that Horshack must have his driver's license because as we find out, well, not just in this episode, but in another episode, they mentioned that he drives his father's taxi.
Yes.
And that comes up.
Yes, it does come up.
As a running joke with this. So yeah, this episode doesn't have any guest star other than Deborah Lee Scott, who plays Hotsy Totsy. Surprisingly, there's no Woodman, and it would have been really interesting to get his take on these shenanigans.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. He gets mad when furniture is rearranged, literally.
He would have been apoplectic. He would have been like, I want this out of my school. Yeah. He would want this situation A, out of his school, or B, he would just be setting up conferences to make people marry each other. Like, the kind of thing he'd do.
But I think at this point, Woodman was sort of the foil, but not as central as he later became. They're still working out the dynamics, as you can see in this episode.
We're early season 1, so it's going to change, it's going to transform. People are going to be different. That's the way it goes.
Yeah.
We open, as always, with a Gabe story.
Yeah.
His Aunt Eileen and her parent, who could only say, "Who is this?"
Yes. There's a lot in these early episodes of Julie and Gabe being domestic together, so they're drying mugs and hanging them up. Most, but not all of the jokes have to do with Gabe's relatives, so this time it's his aunt.
Yep. He has a phalanx of wacky relatives who do ridiculous things. That's the point of being what it's like to be a Kotter. I love that as he gets deeper and deeper in the story, and Marcia Strassman starts to crack up.
Yeah.
He goes, "This is a true story."
Yeah.
He's trying to hold it together, and he doesn't quite make it.
Yeah, I mean, my previous podcast was about Mork and Mindy, and you can see poor Pam Dauber is just in stitches dealing with Rob Williams. This isn't as frantic, but I believe that Marcia Strassman is amused by Gabe Kaplan.
Yeah.
I buy that.
Yep. And
we find out that I'm collecting facts about their apartment, so they're not allowed to have pets.
Yeah.
But it's like, where would you put a pet? This is one of the tiniest apartments on television.
Yeah, this is the most realistically small apartments in the history of television.
Yeah.
And eventually they bring twins into it, so it's like...
Well, they move. They get a different apartment.
Yeah, that's right, they do that. I completely forgot that happened. Like, for some reason I remember them bringing the twins home. And
I think they do, but they move later. I don't remember the exact order, but by the fourth season they're in a different apartment. Yeah, and it's pretty nice.
That does make sense, by the way, since they both move up the social ladder and move up the financial ladder as the series goes on.
Yeah.
But yes.
But, I mean, you compare it to Friends or That Girl, which are also New York set, and these people are living, not amazing apartments, but much nicer than the Kotters have. They sleep in their living room.
Mm-hmm. The kitchen's right there. You get no bathroom, but yeah. That's exactly right.
And most of these cold openings don't have anything to do with the plot. It's just, they probably just mixed and matched. Yeah, they probably recorded a bunch and then mixed and matched them.
Yeah. They probably just told Kaplan to improvise.
Yeah.
This is my guess.
Yeah. Well, they
just told Gabe Kaplan to... Yeah, he was a stand-up.
Yeah, so he had a whole backlog of jokes.
Oh, yeah. That's my guess, but I don't know that for sure.
So we go to the school.
Yes, we do.
And Freddie, Juan, and Vinny are pitching pennies, I assume, in the hallway.
Which is typical Swahog behavior.
It's like low-key gambling.
It's as close as these kids can get to gambling. At prime time on ABC.
Yeah.
In the 70s.
Yeah. So Arnold comes in, and Vinny puts his arm around his shoulder and asks about the big date he had on Saturday. So I assume this is the following Monday. Apparently they don't call each other or visit. Yeah,
that's my guess, because it costs money to do that.
Yeah.
None of these kids have enough money to pay for calls, and they paid for calls back in the 70s. So.
Yeah.
Let the man speak. Of course they all think that Arnold has gotten somewhere with this girl because they have convinced themselves that Rosalie is putting up for everybody. And she's not, but hey.
The one, the only Rosalie Totsy.
Queen.
Her nickname is Hotsy Totsy.
Yeah, daughter of the Reverend Totsy, which comes up later.
Yes.
And of course, Arnold has this very sweet, innocent date with her where they ended up going to go to the airport to bring this person to his dad's cab.
Yeah, because he forgot to turn off the taxi sign.
Yep.
So they took 6 people to the airport.
Yep. And he just like she's a human being. He enjoyed himself. He had a good time. He didn't get anything off.
Yeah.
To use a squiggy and Lenny's squiggyism.
Yes. Probably he hasn't had too many dates before this because Vinny had to set it up.
Yep, exactly.
Vinny and Juan both claim to have had wild dates with her. And we learn a little bit more about that later.
Yep. Beaches, etc. It comes up.
Yeah. And interestingly, Freddie doesn't claim to have dated her.
Exactly. He demurs, I think probably because his girlfriend is hanging out with Rosalie.
We haven't yet met Verna Jean.
We haven't established her as them?
So she shows up later.
I saw her, but
Yeah.
I saw her as a background character. I didn't realize that we had established her.
There's an African-American female extra, but it's not Verna Jean.
Ah! Wow. That's me being stupid. There you go.
Oh, no, you don't know, because there was a lot going on.
Yeah, exactly. A lot.
But yeah, I'm trying to track the extras, so...
Yeah, smart. You need to.
Yeah. So they're gossiping about her and implying that she's loose, I guess. Is how they don't say that because...
Yep.
But yeah.
Yeah, she boils their Ovaltine basically, and they implied beach sex, implied everything sex,
Movies,
implied movie sex, which is classic for these sitcoms.
So she comes in, and I always notice when characters match their outfits. So she and Vinny are both wearing a maroon shirt and a denim jacket, and she's got a denim mini skirt, and he's got jeans.
Nice. Which is interesting.
So it's like, is she sort of the female Vinny? Or was it just that they...
In a lot of ways with that confidence of hers, yep.
Yeah.
But she's smarter.
Yeah, definitely.
She calls him a big dumb, too, which I thought was sweet.
And she thanks him for last Saturday, and she had a really nice time. And like you said, he treated her like a human being.
Yep, the only sweat hog to do so far. Therefore, he gets a semi-pass from her from all this mess. You know, he's eager. He is so eager to be the dad to this.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
It's so sweet. We will. We'll get there.
And the other 3 catcall her, and she tells him to knock it off.
Yeah, and she tells them they're going to be sorry, and oh boy, are they going to be sorry.
Yeah. And it's interesting, Vinny thanks her for being so nice to Arnold, and she takes it as an insult.
Yeah.
And so she turns around and she swings her purse, and Vinny ducks, and she hits Arnold in the face.
God.
And he laughs and acts like she's flirting with him.
Honey. What's happening is, we actually know, we'll know eventually what's happening in his household to make him think that's flirting, but oy vey.
Yeah. Yeah, because we'll find out much later that his mother has been married multiple times, and I think it may actually be his stepfather's cab. Yeah. But I'm not, I don't remember details.
At this point, it must be.
I could kind of give Vinny the benefit of the doubt that maybe he just means that sincerely, that she went out with his shy friend.
Almost, and yes. I see why she did that after the cat called her and treated her like a piece of meat, though. So
yeah, she's on the defensive now.
Yeah, understandably so.
This is another thing that I'm trying to track is, are the sweat hogs everybody in the classroom, or is it just the main 4?
My best guess, this is all the remedial class.
Okay, so it's everybody.
So my best guess is that everybody's in the remedial class, but all of the 4 of them are sweat hogs because it takes a lot to become a sweat hog. Okay. I mean, look what Andrew Gabrowski goes through.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's like, can there be a female sweat hog comes up later. So the term is used sometimes to mean the whole class and sometimes just the main 4.
I generally assume it's just the 4 of them because obviously everything gets complicated otherwise.
Yeah. So Arnold and Vinny go into class. Juan and Freddie already went in, and Kotter comes down the hallway. She starts crying.
Yep, badly.
Pretending to cry.
Terrible fake tears, but Gabe falls for him.
Yeah.
They start playing charades, basically.
He asks if she wants to go to the nurse, and if he can help. And he keeps asking, and she'll just shake her head.
Yeah. Rosalie, I'm going to go for the whole thing.
So then they do start literally doing charades. Right. And I was watching this thinking, couldn't she just do baby?
Yeah, I know.
But no, she has to act down pear plus ants with her fingers crawling.
And then Gabe is horrified as he should be. Yeah.
Well, and he's a new teacher. This is his first teaching gig. I don't know what they covered in his education major, but here he is. And as this episode points out, he likes to butt into their business, and she's playing on. She already knows this about him.
Yeah.
So he says, says the father is one of the SWAT hogs, and he actually does suspect the male extras later, so yeah.
Yep. Basically anybody within the radius, but he basically assumes that SWAT hog is exactly what she wants him to do, because she wants them to score.
Yeah. Because this is her revenge, as she'll say later.
Her well-deserved revenge. How do I get involved with these kids? It's like talking to a wall.
Yeah.
Talking to a wall.
Yeah. And there's a close-up of her mischief. Yeah, it's like talking to a wall. Yeah. There's a close-up of her smiling mischievously before she goes in the classroom. So the studio audience and the home audience, we are in on this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, everybody knows that she's faking it. She's letting everybody in with the SWAT hogs in this situation. And poor Gabe.
Yeah.
Poor
The characters
Gabe.
don't know, but we know.
Yeah.
It's an interesting technique because she's not in every episode, but we're asked to identify with her.
Oh, yeah.
So I like that.
I know they wanted to use her more, but then she landed in Mary Hartman.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to happen. Yeah. And I do relate to her, because geez, and then she becomes even more sympathetic when they bring her back later on. Man, oy vey.
Yeah, without spoiling too much, there is, I would say, a tragic backstory, but there's kind of a sad backstory of what happened to Rosalie afterwards. And in that episode, Arnold, again, is the standout. He is the friend.
He's the best.
To her.
Yeah,
He's the loyal one.
He has one heck of a banner season of being chivalrous in that year. Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
So, we get yet another Marx Brothers reference as the boys are doing shtick in the classroom, and Gabe has to break them up.
He specifically, so they're pitching pennies again, and then they tease him about him being tardy, and I thought it was interesting. One asked him if he brought a note from his mommy, and that's ironic because of the notes from signed Epstein's mother.
Epstein's mother,
One of the things that happened when the show, ABC had some issues with it. They decided to tone down. The Sweat Hogs were coming across as too violent and too thuggish. Yeah. So they decided to go with more of a Marx Brothers kind of humor, and so this is specifically, Kotter calls them the Marx Brothers.
Yeah.
And then he tells them that he's got something very serious to discuss. He wants to talk to them about responsibility.
Responsibility!
And they don't get it. So he talks about hoods, and they're happy because he thinks he means hoodlums.
They don't get it. Not until it hits him across the head. Almost literally.
But he's working his way around to fatherhood. Rosalie is watching this, waiting to see what she has set in motion.
Almost rubbing her hands together and doing. Understandably so, though.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
So then there's the thing about Camp Feldman.
Oh, God, Camp Feldman. Where my sister went off to. That was funny.
We'll later find out that Horshack has two sisters, and I think one of them is a year younger. And and it's like, did she have an abortion at 14? What is he implying?
Oh, God. Considering what these kids have been through, I wouldn't be shocked if there wasn't a back alley abortion involved here somehow.
Yeah. And everybody just thinks it's funny that his sister maybe got pregnant at summer camp.
I know. So awful.
There's brief Juan/Freddy, because they start doing word association and honey, darling, and...
Baby. As they try desperately get them to say baby, and then finally they say baby, and then...
Yeah. And I noticed that Rosalie put her hand up, but nobody notices. Like, so much is going on that they don't notice.
Yep. And she is milking it and enjoying it as much as humanly possible.
And then Kotter wants to see all the boys after class, so that not just the main four.
Yep, and he lines them up.
Yeah. Rosalie makes her announcement. Arnold asks if she went to Camp Feldman.
And, of course, she did not. And all the boys are horrified.
There's an extra who was referred to as Ralph in one episode. I noticed he looked particularly guilty.
Yes, he's some good acting.
And I don't know if it's just that's how this extra decided. He's got kind of curly hair.
Yeah, I noticed him.
Oh, you did?
There's a lot of good extra acting in
this
episode. A lot of good background acting.
Nothing comes of that. It was just like, is that how he was directed? Or he just thought, I'm just going to play it like I secretly have something go with Rosalie.
That's my guess, actually. They decided to play it that way. So. Oh, it's fantastic. The whole thing was absolutely fantastic. So, Gabe tries to get it out of the kids. Yeah. Boys won't confess. All of a sudden, they're innocent choir boys. At one point, Vinny says, I'll see you in church,
yes.
Mr. Kotter.
And I think there's a later episode where Vinny decides to join the priesthood. I think the coach yells at him and then drops dead or something like that. I've forgotten. I haven't seen that episode in a long time. And he's going to join the priesthood. So there's some stuff about Vinny and Catholicism that runs in now to the series.
And Catholic guilt. Lots of Catholic guilt in Vinny.
Yeah. So there's some similarities to Laverne and Shirley.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the proposal.
Which is so sweet. That's
one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this with you is because Horshack proposes to Rosalie, even though he is clearly not the father.
Yeah, and he doesn't care.
And this is similar to
Lenny proposing to Laverne when she thinks she's pregnant after a while, brewery party, and look for your leap in Laverne Shirley.
Yeah, which you have memorized.
Yes, I have generally memorized it, and I will not torture you all by saying the thing over again.
And Horshack explains that his last name means the cattle are dying. And you can see Mr. Kotter mouthing that, and then he'll say it at the end of the scene. Yeah. We don't know, and I don't know if they ever explain what ethnicity Horshack is.
They don't really.
Like, we know with the other three.
Yes, we do.
And I don't know what ethnicity Rosalie is, because I couldn't really tell with a name like Hotsy. It could be Italian, it could be English, it could be anything.
It could be Italian. Yeah, exactly.
And when Lenny proposes to Laverne, he wants to offer his last name.
Yes, and make an honest woman out of her, all stuff.
And he explains about his name.
Yes, he explains about his name. It means help, there's a hog in my kitchen.
Yeah.
In Polish.
So I just thought that was it. It's about a year apart between the two proposals, but as I was watching, it's like, this is really...
I know. And both were written by married couples.
Oh.
Makes it even funnier.
Okay.
Yes, this is written by,
That's funny, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's sweet.
And of course it's very different because Laverne and Lenny have a longer history and more going on. I don't know if you can even really call Rosalie and Arnold a ship. They sort of are, but this is more just Horshack being a stand-up guy. I don't know what his feelings are for Rosalie. I think he's got a crush on her in this episode, but beyond that, I don't know.
Yeah, I think he's got a crush on her, and I think he's like has deep affection for her.
Yeah.
Even when he ends up with Mary on the future, which spoilers, but hey,
it's okay.
It's all you guys already know this is gonna happen. Then you get to the bachelor party episode, and he sees her. There's still that tenderness between them, that friendship, and that affinity.
Yeah. And I wrote, Deborah Lee does a good job of not breaking during this, because she does not crack up.
Nope, not at all.
And so she's only 16, about.
Exactly.
And so she does not want to get married, but she's set this in motion, and she's trying not to get trapped in her own trap.
Yep.
And she also doesn't want her Arnold's feelings, I think. So she says she wants to marry the father of her baby.
She's being very gentle.
Because she's hoping he'll step up, even though there is no baby.
Yep.
And I love her delivery on, I'd be Hotsy Horshack? It's just very New York.
It's the way she's considering it. She's like, well, it's different. You wouldn't be Hotsy Totsy no more. Hotsy Horshack.
Yeah. And he looks very happy when he runs out. Like he's looking forward to marrying her.
And then Gabe comes in later, again with the cattle are dying line. It's all very good. And he would gladly do it at any moment. He does not care that's not his baby. He just does not care. It's so sweet.
Another spoiler, Horshack will be the one who gets married on the show in season 4.
Yes, he will be. Yes,
in a way, this is kind of characteristic of him, just like Lenny more than Squiggy wants to get married at a young age.
Yes. Yeah. As Squiggy points out, he would love to be someone's captain individual. Anyway.
Yes. And then Kotter decides to get even more involved.
Yep, he brings her home to Julie. In a desperate hope that... Yeah.
But before that, he invites her to come home, and she gets kind of flirty with him. And he says he can call her Hotsy.
Yeah, it's so weird. I think she thought... I just imagine... Oh, God. Just imagine all the grossness some other teachers put her through. Oh, no.
Yeah, he's a decent guy. So I don't know if she thinks that he's hitting on her and she's intrigued, or if she's trying to play up to her image. I wasn't sure how to take that part. And including into the beginning of the next scene.
I felt like almost like she thought it was expected of her.
Ah, okay.
To flirt with the teacher if the teacher was flirting at her.
Yeah.
That's how I kind of took it. But
it's
just sad, but...
It's an interesting episode because there's a stuff about her reputation and we don't really know what the truth is.
Exactly.
And in a way it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
But the slut shaming is kind of at the center of the episode, so then what she does I don't know. And definitely flirting with a teacher is crossing a line that is different than what she's doing elsewhere. So
Definitely.
So they go to his apartment, and he looks at his watch and says Julie should be here any minute. And she kind of acts like she doesn't think that his wife is going to show up.
Yeah, which is really, don't think about that one too hard.
And he starts pointing out parts of the apartment.
Yeah, and records. He gets her going on music. So when he talks to Julie, she won't hear anything.
Yeah, so Julie comes in, and right after Rosalie has grabbed Kotter's arm, I think. Like, they're sitting next to each other. I think that's when Julie walks in. It's like, uh-oh.
Yep, she knows something's up. What's up? She has no clue, but she knows something's up.
Oh, no, wait a minute. Oh, no, I'm sorry. She kisses him.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
She kisses Kotter. That's what Julie walks in.
Oh, God, I forgot about that.
And that's right after she said something about, she understands that it's hard for a person of the older generation to talk about sex. And he's only like 26.
Yeah, but he doesn't look it, to be fair to her.
Kaplan was 30 at that point.
So close enough.
I love Marcia Strassman's outfits, and this one, it's tan with a red scarf.
Yeah.
They're just these really nice mid-70s outfits.
It's a nice little fashionable look.
She says, nice to meet you, Hotsy. So she knows about the nickname.
Yep, exactly. Geez, how far across the spectrum does that spread if she knows about it? Yeesh.
Well, probably Gabe told Julie about his students. Julie has met the main four, and she met Vinny's pilot girlfriend. But she hasn't met Rosalie until now. Gabe says he'd like a word alone with her, but it's a really small apartment.
Yeah. So they basically have to, like, put her over there with the music, and then walk away.
Yeah, so there's these big, clunky headphones that
70s headphones.
Gabe puts on Rosalie, and so there's this stereo that's conveniently...
And then she has to be tethered to it, because we don't have wireless or anything yet, so...
Yeah.
So once she's playing this, she's not going to move.
Yeah, and Julie wipes off the lipstick, and he says it was a gratitude kiss because Rosalie was going to have a baby.
Yeah.
And Marcia Strassman, I think she's great. She just, the eyebrow work here.
Yep. Very slow raised eyebrow. Because what else can Julie do? No,
he explains the problem, and he wants Julie to find out who the father is, because I guess he figures Rosalie's going to open up to Julie because Julie's a young woman.
Yep.
And then we find out about Rosalie's parents would kill her, especially her father, Reverend Totsy.
Which I love.
Do you think that's true, or do you think that's just part of the story that Rosalie made up?
I believe that the Reverend Totsy is real, especially after what happened to her later in canon.
Okay.
When she ends up where she is, yeah.
So it's kind of the cliche of the minister's daughter who goes wild.
Yep. That's what I guess. My personal little guess on that,
Yeah. Julie didn't have money to buy Gabe a birthday present, and so she wrote him an IOU for a giant favor. So I like that. I like any little glimpse into their marriage.
Yeah.
So he's calling this in.
It's really sweet, it's really cute, and I love them when they're neighborhood parents. They're basically the neighborhood parents at this point.
Yeah, and that will grow over time that they kind of parent the sweat hogs. Mm-hmm. This is early in that.
Exactly.
He's going to leave to take out the garbage, so he wads up a paper towel. I'm blanking out on what you call that in New York apartments. Not as a disposal, like at the end of the hall, you drop your garbage.
That garbage chute.
Yeah, the garbage chute. So I picture he's walking down the hallway to the garbage chute.
Yeah.
Rather than going outside, because he comes back pretty quickly. So Rosalie is actually dancing to the music. I thought that was kind of cute. That was kind of a Deborah Lee thing, it felt like.
Yeah, I thought it was really charming. I thought it was adorable. Just kind of sitting there, just grooving along, and then Gabe has to kind of pull the headphones off her.
So Julie starts pointing out the different things in the apartment, because it's really awkward for her. At least Kotter knew that he was going to have this conversation with Rosalie, but Julie came home to this.
Yeah, so she has to struggle to figure out how to go into mom mode.
Yeah, and this is
basically
a very male show, and this is actually one of the few scenes where we get two female characters talking to each other, but it wouldn't pass the Bechdel test.
Bechdel test. Yeah, not at all, because it's talking about the guys, tragically.
Yeah. Julie mentions family planning, and I'm guessing that the censors wouldn't let them say birth control.
That's my guess. She's like, I keep playing a family in the back of a Studebaker?
57 Chevy.
57 Chevy. 57 Chevy.
Yeah.
Which is a great line.
Yeah. And I thought it was interesting that Rosalie isn't worldly enough to know how long a pregnancy would be plausible.
Yeah.
Like, she keeps changing the amount of months.
Yeah. I definitely speaks to the Reverend being real, because that's kind of sheltering that happens.
Yeah, so even though she maybe gets around, I guess is how they would have said it, she doesn't know anything about birth control, or not much.
Yeah.
And she says she wants to get married and have her baby, and they don't discuss any other options, even by like, well, have you thought about, and kind of trailing off. Nothing. That's just it. She's going to get married. And of course, the pregnancy is non-existent, but she's not even going to tell Julie. She could say, listen, you were a young woman. You know what these guys are like. This is what I'm up to. Please don't tell your husband. She doesn't. She's just going to carry this through. Yeah. So I have a note. Poor Julie, the real victim in this episode.
Julie really is the real victim in this episode because she is so out of the depths and out of the elements of the story here. She has basically no clue what's happening, what's going on until Gabe fills her in. And by the time Gabe fills her in, it's too late. She's been pressed into motherhood mode. So you gotta feel bad for her.
I really did like the two of them together.
Too.
How they played off each other.
Too. I really liked it a lot.
I can't remember what happened before this note. But Rosalie says that Mr. Kotter is just as freaky at home as he is at school.
That's a great moment. That's another great moment.
I think it's because he comes back and he's going to make more trash or something. I can't remember now.
Yeah. You have the teeny tiny little bit of trash that he goes to go throw in garbage incinerator. Little fingernail sized bit of trash. I did note the awkward smash cut between this scene and the next scene.
Okay, I wondered about that because, but before the cut, Rosalie says Mrs. Kotter didn't learn nothing neither. So triple negative. Yeah. So she's letting Kotter know that Julie doesn't know anything more about who the father is. Yeah, so I have an official DVD and it stopped 9 minutes in. I also have a bootleg DVD which is based on syndication. And yeah, there's a cut right there. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I figure there might have been a few more lines between Gabe and Julie.
Yeah, that's my only guess because that is one heck of an awkward smash cut that makes no sense. But for how weird it is in that particular moment, in that particular episode.
Yeah. Did you have any other thoughts on that scene?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it when Julie is called into service here to be the intelligent one. Yeah. And I loved the two of them in early parenting mode, so to speak. So I enjoyed the whole thing.
Yeah, good. Yeah, me too. So the next scene is presumably the next day, which would be Tuesday. Yeah. I'm guessing it's homeroom. Yep. Because Kotter teaches social studies. Yeah. And he also has the sweat hogs for homeroom, which is, school starts and then homeroom. Yeah. And the classes are always really short. Because you'll have the bell will ring at the beginning of the scene and at the end of the scene. But when it's homeroom, you can kind of get away with that. So it's just Kotter and the male students in the class. Yep. And so now he's got the lineup. Yeah. And he's trying to interrogate them, and he is asking them whether they've dated Rosalie and what happened.
Yep, exactly. Gabe basically goes into interrogation mode here.
Yeah.
He believes that at least one of them touched her.
Yeah.
At least one of them touched her, and that they're full of crapola.
Well, because he believes Rosalie.
Yep.
And she said one of the sweat hogs, one of the boys in the class, is the father of her baby. Yep. So he's going to
stand for her on.
Narrow it down. Vinny is playing dumb, which it's not hard for him. Yep. And Arnold says...
What? Where? Who?
Arnold says Vinny should tell him about Lowe's Oriental, which I think is a revival movie theater because they were showing 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
And there's these weird things about this show that sometimes it's like, is this the 70s or is this the 50s? 10 Commandments was on the screen and Vinny and Hotsy were in the balcony breaking 9 of them.
Which is a great line.
Yeah.
Nothing didn't happen. Yeah. And then, of course, he calls Juan on the carpet today about the beach and the prints in the sand and
Yeah. One says Kotter can't pin this on him because he knows his rights, and Kotter says this isn't a courtroom, it's a classroom, so they don't have any rights. Kotter skips over Arnold. Arnold looks really eager. He's hoping to be called on. Yeah. And this actually reminded me of an episode of MASH where Radar is suspected of getting a Korean girl pregnant, and he doesn't deny it because he doesn't want people to think that he's a virgin. So it's not exactly the same, but it's kind of like that Arnold feels a little bit hurt that he's not considered capable of impregnating Rosalie.
Yeah. He can do the sex good. Believe him.
And so as the guys are denying it, the other guys are really amused, even though they're denying it too.
Yeah, all of them would do anything to crawl out from underneath the weight of this ridiculousness.
Yeah. Freddie did deny it, or didn't deny it, but he didn't claim to date her. In the earlier scene, when it would have been the thing of the guy's reputation, he could have claimed, he could have made up a story, they don't know. He is consistent that he didn't do anything. He never even went out with her.
Yep.
And then Vinny says that he's disappointed if you can't even trust a guy named Washington to tell you the truth. And there's always these little jokes about
I love that line.
George Washington and Freddie Washington. And there's so many history jokes on this series. I didn't remember that. I keep, now they're talking about Julius Caesar.
Yeah. There is a surprising amount of pop culture and American history. One-liners that they wove in, I think, as part of ABC's request that the show be more educational.
Yes.
Because ABC was super on their butt.
Yes.
Complaining that the show was empty of moral values and afraid that they were going to make the busing riots worse and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is the truth.
The National Education Association had a representative on the set.
Yep, I remember that.
It's crazy. Juan says that settles it, so I wondered, were the other three guys interrogated during the commercial break?
Yes, I guess.
Because we'll never know what their alibis were.
Yeah, they need to put a candle in the window. The last time this happened, 3 wise men came from the east.
Yeah, and the students don't get the joke.
No.
And the audience takes a while to get it, and then they really like it.
Yeah, which is sad.
Oh, but before that, Juan congratulates Horshack on being the father, and all the guys clap. So it's like by process of elimination, because everybody else denied it, it must be Horshack. And then Freddie points out that Arnold only went out with Rosalie last weekend. Vinny proudly puts his hand on Arnold's shoulder and says, and I thought I was a fast worker. But then Arnold says that they ought to know that Rosalie said he didn't do it.
Yeah.
So he could claim it, but he's not going to.
Which is funny. Which, if you really think about it, it really is funny because you actually gladly claim responsibility. Only he just simply, he was like just macho enough for the guys.
Yeah, I think Rosalie is not the only one who's not too clear on how pregnancy works, because the guys don't. Their mouth is not great.
Yep, exactly.
Kotter stands and he says someone here is lying and he's going to find out now. And then he goes to the door. Yep. There's really not any reason for him to go to the door as a character. Like, was he going to go round up more students?
That's my only guess.
The 4 girls fall in. And so I don't know if he knew that they were eavesdropping or they just fell in when he opened the door for whatever reason.
Yeah, I love that all the girls are sitting there listening. Because how many of them, to be frank, have dealt with crap from the sweat hogs in school?
Yeah.
They're probably treasuring this as much as they can.
And I wondered about that, if Rosalie and the other girls are friends. And we'll find out that from their reactions, I don't think they were in on it. She had a chance to tell them, because they were all supposed to be in the library. Kotter had sent them off so he could talk to the male students.
Yeah.
Oh, another wardrobe note. I noticed that Rosalie is now in a red top, and I wondered if that was like a Scarlet Letter thing.
Oh, yeah.
Wearing scarlet.
Yeah, that's a nice wardrobe note.
Thank you. So Rosalie doesn't mind if the girls stay. She's got nothing to hide. So it's sort of like she really wants an audience for this. She wants to be redeemed, and she wants the other girls to know.
Exactly.
And they want to know. I mean, wouldn't you want to stay and find out what's going on?
Yeah.
So now it's like a lineup. Kotter has all the boys up against the wall. He insists that Rosalie identify the father.
I love the way this is handled as she eyeballs each one of them and takes her time.
Yes.
Yeah, but won't meet her eyes.
And one puts on sunglasses.
And then, of course, Horshack is just grinning.
Yes.
Oh, honey.
Yeah. Hoping he'll be picked.
Yeah, hoping he'll be picked.
I noticed that the guy in the gray t-shirt looks especially uncomfortable, and Ralph again looks guilty.
Yeah. Again, great extra work. Yeah. Really great extra work.
Yeah, and just ensemble work is really nice in this episode. Yes. I think one of the nicest.
The ensemble work is really fantastic.
Yeah. Even though they had not all been working together that long, I'd buy them as a group.
And as friends.
Yeah. She guesses that they all denied it. She knows these guys, and she knows what they would do in this situation. And so she says, well, then she's not pregnant. And Arnold is so innocent when he says, hey, can she do that?
Can she suddenly unpregnantify herself? That's the big question.
Exactly.
Gabe's face throughout this entire situation.
I do feel sorry for Gabe. I mean, he was a Badinsky, but he meant well. And so,
Sure. He was being a good teacher and a good mentor.
Yeah.
He was trying to protect Rosalie and also get whichever boy allegedly did this to her to stand
to
up
be responsible.
and be responsible, exactly.
I don't like that the episode presents the only option for these 16-year-olds is to get married.
Yeah, that's very typical of the era, tragically.
Yeah. So I noticed that the girls do look surprised.
Exactly.
That made me think that she did not confide in them. She's not going to tell anybody.
Yep. She's going to enjoy this way too much. That's what she does.
So Kotter wants to know why she told him that she was pregnant.
And then she spills it.
Oh, this is her speech, that she has to go through life being known as Hotsy Totsy.
Yep.
And being treated as easy when she ain't.
Yep.
And she points out that even Kotter believed the boys when they claimed that she'd fooled around with them.
Yep. She ain't no Hotsy Totsy. I'm a lady.
Yeah.
I love that line. I'm a lady.
My favorite line right here is, that's when I decided that getting even would be the best revenge.
That's my girl. I love you, Hotsy Totsy.
So the guys are just really sullen. I don't know how else to put it. They're just like, ah. And I wanted to see the girl extras, but I couldn't see the reaction. A little bit sympathized with the guys. I mean, they were presumably all trash-talking Rosalie, but I can understand them being mad at her.
Exactly.
Except for one.
Yep.
One sweat hog. Rosalie goes over and thanks Arnold for being so valiant while she was pregnant. And he smiles sweetly.
Yeah. And then she says that they can maybe go on another date. And this time they could go to the airport alone without the taxi cab.
Yeah, without the fares. Yeah, and she calls him a true gentleman. I thought that was a really nice description of him.
That was lovely. That was super lovely. It was really sweet. Yeah. She tries to get him to accept the date. He's just like in La La Land with Tweety Bird.
He walks into a wall.
Yes, he walks into a wall, which is so Lenny.
Yeah, that's a very Lenny reaction. So Kotter wants to know why she involved him, because he can kind of understand, okay, she wanted revenge against the guys, and she said because he's always buttoned in where he doesn't belong.
Yeah.
And I wrote, but still, poor Julie. Because why did she get involved?
Yep. That's a grand scene.
Well, but then she kisses Kotter. Again, another kiss of gratitude.
Yep.
He does his W.C. Fields imitation.
Which he apparently finds irresistible.
So then we get the tag, and I'm not sure if the tag has something to do with the episode, because it may have to do with the cut, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
So it's obviously nighttime. Julie is in a long nightgown or robe, and she is coming over. Gabe is in their fold-out couch bed.
Yeah.
You know, another thing of they just live near poverty. Teacher's wages in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And he's reading a giant comic that says supervillains. So I just thought that was a nice detail. And I don't think adults really read comics much in the 70s. I mean, now it's very common with graphic novels and manga and so on. But I think that's sort of a hint that he's trying to be mature and fatherly, but he's kind of still a kid. And then it's called Supervillains. I don't know if that was a real comic.
Yes.
But.
Nah, that's obviously something they mocked up so they wouldn't have to spend any money on royalties.
So she joins him in bed and says she's been thinking, maybe he's not too young to be a father. So it's like, where is this coming from? Is this building on the scene that was cut short in syndication, or is this just a random conversation? When did she say, or did he say that he's too young?
I'm 90% sure that this got cut somehow in syndication, because this one has some messy edits on DVD.
Yeah. So it's not the usual tag where he's telling her a joke.
Yeah.
They're having a married couple discussion.
Yeah.
It just had a very different tone than some of the other episodes. And really fascinating. There's a lot going on in this episode. So he sets aside the comic and he takes her hand and he says they talked about this before they were married. That's interesting. Like, I think at this point they're newlyweds.
Yeah.
But apparently they talked about whether they wanted to have kids and timing.
Yep. And later on, to the glory, they will indeed have kids, so good things will happen ahead.
If I remember correctly, he is surprised when she tells him that she's pregnant. I haven't watched those episodes in a while. Yeah. And they both decided they should wait for a while. That makes me think that she's probably using birth control.
Yeah. At the very least, condoms are happening, is my guess. They're a committed married couple. They're obviously going to take some precautions because they have no money. Yeah. And they just moved to a new town, so obviously. Yeah,
so he grew up there. In the pilot, they've just moved back, and he is just starting his job. And the pilot aired third, and there's a frame where it's a flashback. And he says, I remember when I first
Yes.
went back to Brooklyn, and because they had to explain why the pilot was airing
Yes.
third. This was the week after that.
Yeah.
What order things happen is kind of shaky.
Yep. All I can think of are those pinup boobs that accidentally ended up in syndicated edit and have been airing
Yes.
for years and years and
Yes.
years. I found that! That was me!
Yes.
I was the first. Yep. Yeah.
And I watched the episode so many times, including when it first aired, until you mentioned that I had no idea. And then I was watching the pilot, oh, yes, they are. There they are. Yeah.
Yep. Booty McBoobs. Anyway. Oh.
Yeah, so editing is a strange process.
Yeah.
What gets cut and what doesn't.
Yeah, especially in syndicated sitcoms, because man, I feel like they just butcher things together for.
And these aren't even music rights issues so far.
No, there's no reason for that to be happening, to be frank.
So he kisses her, turns out the light, and lies down his side, and then she turns the lamp back on and says that it's been a while that they've been married. And this is a very, I mean, I know it's not only them, but this is a very Bob and Emily Hartley kind of thing, to have a conversation bed, turn on the light, turn off, and that's part of the rhythm of the conversation. So he sits up again and says, no, it hasn't been a while that they've been married. He takes her hand and says, it's not going to be a while for a while. Pauses and says a while. And then he kisses her again. He tells her to go sleep, and he turns off the lamp again. And she immediately turns the lamp back on and says, Gabe, don't you want a family? So it's like he just dealt with this whole thing of teen pregnancy. That, I would think, would not make him eager to start having kids and thinking about raising teenagers someday.
Yep. And the future will pay out. The future will pay out.
Yes. So he sits up again and says that she's his family.
That's just adorable.
So I thought that was interesting.
It's adorable.
Yeah.
It's very sweet.
Yeah, and they really are sweet together in season 1. So he just wants to keep it that way for a while.
Yeah.
I like that they're also playful together. That's something that we saw even in the earlier scene where she was mad at him for throwing her into the situation with Rosalie. They joke around together. And they say that they love each other. It's just really nice, even though there's this tension about having kids. Then it turns out that his mother is pressuring them to have a kid.
Which was unshocking, because in the stories he tells about his mom in the show.
Yeah. So this is just kind of an odd scene because it in a way felt like it was coming out of nowhere because of the edits. But it's still a nice, different ending. And yeah, they will eventually become parents in a while.
Yeah, that will happen this week. It's a sweet little tag, very cute.
It's a very surprisingly sweet episode.
Yes, it is.
I mean, it is a little bit uncomfortable in spots.
Yes.
I suppose you could say that Rosalie is very manipulative, but I think because the audience is kind of made into accomplices, we forgive her, and because we know what she's dealing with. And it almost...
exactly.
It almost feels like a feminist revenge against slut-shaming. I mean, that's how I take it.
To be honest, yes. And to be honest, this is why Hugs deserve it.
How far do you think she would have taken it? Like, how long would she keep up this lie?
I think she was smart enough, like, not to take it too far.
Okay.
Because, you know, eventually she would be forced into marrying one of them. She'd have to tell her father and all that jazz. Eventually there's a line you draw.
What if...
You say, okay, that's enough.
What if one of the boys admitted or claimed, maybe it wouldn't be true, that he had sex with her? Or do you think they would just all deny it because they don't want to get married?
Let's see. I think, well, obviously Horshack would gladly marry her, gladly go through all that.
Yeah.
So, but the rest of them, pretty much canonical that no.
Yeah. I'm giving each of these episodes a letter grade like in school. So F- is the lowest, A+ is the highest. What would you give this? And you could judge it as a Welcome Back Kotter episode or a sitcom episode or, however you want. What grade would you give it?
This is a solid A- to me. I would probably have very solid. One of my favorite Welcome Back Kotter episodes.
Yeah.
What I would have probably done is added a little bit more meat onto the plot bones after she confirms everything. But I mostly think it's very well paced. I think it's well written. I think it's well plotted. So I enjoy it.
Okay.
What would you give it?
I'd give it a B+. I think it's the best of the first 5, which is as far as I've watched in my rewatch for this. Like I said, I'm a little bit dubious about some of what Rosalie does, and I'm not crazy about the sweat hogs, but it was interesting to see where her path was and how it affected everybody else, and she's sort of the agent of chaos where she's affecting everybody, which is one reason why I kind of wish Woodman had, even if it was just a couple lines, like him walking in and why are you doing a lineup, and Mr. Woodman, I'll talk to you later, something, or he overhears something. I don't know that necessarily would have made it better, but I think I kind of missed Mr. Woodman. It is definitely one of the best episodes, possibly the best episode that centers on Rosalie. It is very good. We didn't have Verna Jean. She's one of my favorite recurring characters. But I think for an early episode where they're starting to settle into the characters, it is really strong. Yeah. And it would be interesting to see an unedited copy. I don't know that necessarily bump up my grade, but yeah, I can totally understand it. So we're not that far apart on it. And I didn't want to ask you ahead of time. I knew that this was one of your favorites, but I didn't know like what your exact grade would be.
Exactly.
No relation to the TV show Head of the Class. I'm picking ahead of the class for each episode, and it doesn't have to be a student. It could be anybody. Like one week it was Julie. I just thought she was the most enjoyable character in the pilot. So it doesn't have to be the central character, just whose performance or who were you most enjoying watching. Like even if it was somebody with one line, if it was just the most wonderful line. So who would you pick of the cast for this episode that was your favorite?
It's Rosalie.
Yeah.
It's Rosalie.
Yeah.
It's gotta be Rosalie.
I mean, it's pretty much a gimme. I think Deborah Lee Scott does a lot with the character that could have been very two-dimensional. She does some interesting little twists, like where she's dancing with the headphones. And there are moments like, I can't tell if this is bad acting or if she's doing Rosalie doing bad acting, but I kind of gave her the benefit of the doubt. Like, Rosalie is not able to cry convincingly, except convincing to Kotter, because he's kind of naive, I guess. It's amazing how many naive characters are in this episode. They're all innocent in some way.
I know, exactly.
But yeah, no, and she's just fun. She just owns the episode. I mean, she was obviously the central figure. Even though she's not on screen every moment, the whole episode is permeated. Yeah. I mean, except for the Aunt Eileen parrot joke. She's affecting everybody and everything that happens. This is her world in this episode. But I did pick Arnold as the runner-up because he is just so precious and funny.
Yeah.
The first episode where... It sounds kind of funny. Not exactly fall in love with Arnold, but kind of want to adopt him, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to kind of wrap him up in a blanket and give him some hot chocolate. He's trying so hard in this one.
Yeah.
That's my feeling about a lot of Arnold-centric episodes, but yep.
Yeah. He's so vulnerable and sweet and good-hearted. And Rosalie really brings that out in him.
Yes.
It's always interesting in the episode where she returns. We still see that dynamic with them. And it would have been interesting to, not necessarily a ship, but just even their friendship is interesting to me. I wish that we had had more of that.
Yeah.
The others, everybody's good. Like I said, Marcia Strassman, even though she wasn't in the whole thing, just her scene in the apartment with Gabe and Rosalie, there's some really nice work there. And Kaplan was not an actor. He kind of learned to act on the show, but he's getting better. Still, like, when he has to yell at people, it's just not quite there yet. He has to play a lot in this episode and have to deal with, like, Arnold's weird last name and Rosalie's dilemma and everybody's denial.
Yeah. Gabe is a very good teacher in this one. He suffers
Well,
a lot.
he is a good teacher, except that he's not actually teaching social studies.
True.
Except that he's teaching them about responsibility, which is an important quality.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's kind of an odd one because there's a lot going on at school. Like there was one episode, the episode after this, Vinny is running for class president. So it's not about the class, but it's about something that's actually school related, as opposed to a pregnancy that could have happened on Coney Island or whatever. And it's non-existent. Yeah, so I think when I was a kid, this seemed kind of daring to me, just that it was about teen pregnancy, but not. And of course, I was only 7 when I first saw it, but then I watched it in syndication, so I kind of figured out some of what it was about. And definitely, as an adult, it's a different experience watching it, because how they're handling issues of female sexuality and male sexuality, and that they're still in this very old-fashioned community, and maybe that's just because it's 70s TV, but the thing of just like on Laverne and Shirley, and also Happy Days, if a girl fools around, it's bad for her reputation, but then it's good for a guy's reputation. And unfortunately, these aren't really attitudes that died out, that there's still slut-shaming and...
Yep, exactly. It's very much of the era, and that's very much like this early proto-feminism.
Yeah.
Where we're starting to say, hey, that's not fair.
Yeah.
Hey, that's ridiculous.
And she's fighting back the only way that she thinks she can.
Exactly.
Because she could say, hey, I'm not fooling around with anybody, but the only way to do that is to test it. She wants to go out with Arnold again.
Yep.
Because he continued to be a good guy. Yep. She thought he was a good guy on their first date. He proposed to her just because he's a true gentleman.
Yeah. He's a good guy and gets rewarded for being a good guy.
Yeah. And I think they just like each other's people, so they enjoy each other's company. And it's one of those things, there's a lot on Welcome Back, Kotter that things happen off screen, so it's like I can kind of picture them going to the airport with the cab and picking people up along the way. And
yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of storytelling and layers, not just with Kotter, but like everybody has...
Yeah.
There's so much like everybody's telling stories, and she's telling a story, and the guys are telling stories.
Yeah, exactly. This is such a nicely complete episode. It does such a good job telling the story.
Although I wonder about their next date. Would have been nice to have a follow-up episode.
I know. I honestly kind of wish they'd stuck together, but I enjoy Horshack and Mary too much in the future.
Yeah, and I think ultimately Rosalie and Arnold are too different.
Yeah.
I don't know that they would
that
they would work as a couple long range, but they enjoy each other.
Yeah.
Each other's company. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Let me know when we get around to the episode where Rosalie comes back, if you'd like to come back for that. And we are hoping to launch a podcast about bosom buddies.
Yes, we are. Yeah, excited for that.
So, different view of New York. And about female sexuality and male sexuality and fashion.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, do you have anything you want to promote, or?
Yeah, nothing new to promote. The Laverne Shirley podcast has ended, but you can go listen to it at the Night After Night Pod on Twitter, on Facebook, on Tumblr. We're all over the place. We're on YouTube. We're on every place where podcasts exist.
And it's all 8 seasons, including the dreaded Season 8.
Season 8.
So next time, as I said, I will be doing the episode called The Election. Rosalie is not in that episode, sadly, but we will have Mr. Woodman back. And remember, the best revenge is getting even.
Oh, yeah. And remember to make sure to teach your parents more words, more words, more words.
Bye.
Bye.
Tease him a lot, 'cause we got him on the spot. Welcome back.